Welcome to Flyover Conservative Podcast with David and Stacey Whited, where we break down current events and examine culture through the lens of conservative Christian values.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Flyover Conservative Podcast. So excited to get to talk to you guys today. We got some great topics, got all kinds of guests coming in. It's going to be a great day.
It is going to be a great one. This is the all-male version. My wife is still currently out of town, so Colt and I are tag teaming this and going to hit some good stuff. And we have another great male guest that's going to be joining us live today as well, taking your questions.
All-male guests.
All-male guests. It's going to be... we're not discriminating against women. We have a female producer producing the show right now. But this, we're all hands on deck, working with what we got. But we're so excited to have you guys join us. Want to make something available to you. We have, speaking of males, a big holiday coming up called Dad Day.
Come on.
You know, it's kind of one of those clunky holidays. There's a lot more songs, boys to men, and people have songs about mama and all this kind of stuff. Not a lot of good dad songs out there, but if you have a dad, even if he's not the best dad in the whole world, but the dude's trying, he shows up, if he at least is present in your life, man, be thankful for that. Dad's doing the very best that they can in a world that's kind of a lot of headwind against the dads. So give them a little pat on the back, and we have some merch to celebrate dads available at flyoverconservatives.com. Some really clever, good stuff. The team has really beefed this up lately. If you've not been there recently, go there and check out the merch at flyoverconservatives.com. Move quickly now. They'll be available for your dad for Father's Day. He probably doesn't need another tie. People don't really wear ties as much anymore. Nope. Doesn't need a bottle of Brut by Fabergé or 𝗕𝗘𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗏𝗧 cologne or whatever, any of this stuff.
This one's fun.
Get him a t-shirt he'll enjoy.
My spouse is proof I can make good decisions. So if you can get this one for the dad in your life, if he's also your husband, because that is a good one. I would love this shirt. If my wife is watching, my spouse is proof I can make good decisions. That's pretty good. I love that. But yeah, great stuff over here. And then we're giving a promo code right now. If you use promo code DAD, you get a huge discount on all your stuff, 15% off on every item purchasable in our merch store. So pretty fun. Grill like a patriot. That was a big one for Memorial Day. I know a lot of people were excited about that one.
You got a long summer grilling coming up. Your dad can wear that when he has you over making steaks.
Grill like a patriot. So yeah, definitely get your dad a great shirt. Go to flyoverconservatives.com. Click on merch there at the top, and you can get access to all these awesome t-shirts and fun stuff. Just everything that represents the Wake Up, Speak Up, Show Up brand. If this is a message that resonates with you, if you want a t-shirt that speaks the truth, this is it. This is where you can find them.
We got people listening from England and from all over the world. If you got questions about your health, this is a great place to be today. Somebody I go to for a lot of advice. Been to his clinic in Minnesota. Enjoy being around him a lot. There's kind of a divergence, like a fork in the road when it comes to healthcare. There's sort of almost like take the red pill or the blue pill kind of situation. Do you want to kind of limp through life and use the medical establishment to sort of keep you on life support and alive longer technically, but maybe not doing a lot of stuff?
Yeah.
Or do you want to choose a path where you're investing into this vehicle that you have to ride around in while you're in this dimension, while you're on Earth, for your spirit to live in? And take care of it. How long can you snow ski? How long can you perform at a high level? What are you doing to strengthen your bones and your muscles to stay flexible, keep your mind strong? How long can you garden? How long can you pick up your grandkids? That kind of health. There's a I think COVID exacerbated that and kind of forced people to think like, hey, how fear-based am I versus proactive in actually being healthy? Well, before that even came along, there was a whole group of doctors that kind of became evident because the times required it, that were having those solutions in place.
Yeah, not just more years in your life, but more life in your years. What we hear this morning, my wife and I were up watching the sunrise, and I was thinking back a couple years ago when Gary Brecka was talking to Dana White, the head of the UFC, and he's like, every morning, if you just change a handful of things, if every morning you are part of the sunrise, you take action in that, like your life's gonna be better. And so all these things that we now do to add more life into those years. And of all the doctors I think that there could be, today's guest is probably the one that, like, if something happens, like my daughter's having a hard time with the bowel movement or this thing weird goes down or whatever, like anything weird in our entire world goes down, the first person I'm talking to, the first text I send, the first call I make is today's guest.
Because he has real solutions, not just masking a symptom, but really helping you get through things. And even better than that, hey, what can you do to not even end up in a bad situation? Be proactive. The kind of things you would take care of, things that are really important, like your car, like your house. But, A lot of people aren't as proactive on their bodies as they are those things. That's why I am really thankful to have from Official Synapse, Dr. Troy Spurrill.
Woo!
Dr. T.
Thank you, guys. I'm always getting those bowel movement texts. They're happening all the time. That's my #1 text I get is bowel movement questions.
It's a range of stuff. You got these little kids, and they're like, this isn't happening. But whatever it is, if it's that or whatever the situation might be, you're the first person I text. I'm like, hey, this was weird. What happens here? What about this? What about this? And you're the first one on speed dial for those.
Welcome, Linda from South Florida. We're so excited to have you guys with us today. We're on 60 different platforms, so wherever you're viewing today's show, you can interact with us. You can ask Dr. Troy. We have an opportunity for him to answer a couple of your questions. He always comes to the show with some gems that he keeps a file. I don't know how many he's got, 100, couple hundred, just things he's accumulated over time. And some of the biggest institutions, some of the brightest minds in the country are also seeking him out because the fruit that he produces with his clients is unbelievable. Olympic athletes and soccer moms and regular people, the whole range of performing at a higher level. And while you may not get gold medals and things like this for what you do, you want to be able to do it to the very best of your ability. So officialsynapse.com, you can go there, get a free discovery call, find out kind of what your situation is. They have a lot of different programs, whether it's webinars, educational based. He has clients in every state, quite a few different countries. So you can go to officialsynapse.com to find out more about his clinic and what they do. But if you were just to sit around with your friends having a cup of coffee and say, hey, what if there was a medical practice that brought in some, people from different practices. They all shared information and yet everybody from a chiropractor to naturopaths to MDs to everybody working together for solutions at the same time. What if there was a medical practice like that? That'd be amazing.
With an underbed of the entire thing being faith related as well. I mean, the kind of doctor that would also pray for you, that recognizes your spiritual health is a part of your overall health as well. I mean, it's a fascinating blend you've put together over there at Official Synapse.
Yeah, it's taken a while. We've got a great team right now, and the good thing that happened with COVID is it did kind of put a line in the sand, and we've got a great culture, a great team of like-minded individuals, and their backgrounds are just different, from PAs to MDs, like you said, and now we have heads of hospitals calling us, asking us how to onboard functional medicine, and then President Trump floating Dr. Mean's name out there as Surgeon General. All of a sudden, there's a big spotlight on functional medicine. So yeah,
huge.
We're sitting pretty good as far as just being primed to help people and to be front and center for a new healthcare system. We love it.
Come on, guys, catch that wave.
And it is important to be, the earlier people can jump on this, the better. But we've kind of been trained, in our world to, hey, you just live your marriage is either going to be good or not good based on you found the right person. It's not about skills or doing things right. Your health, you just kind of get up and go to work. And then when something starts bothering you, you go to a doctor. They're going to give you a medication that'll make that shoulder pain go away. Not necessarily make it go better. And then, maybe in a few years, they might have to do a surgery on it. And then you might need some more painkillers after. Like that whole line of thinking, I think that'll continue because there's a bit of human nature that wants to just, hey, I got a problem. I don't want to change anything. Give me a pill and take care of this problem. But there is a huge groundswell of people that say, I actually want to be healthy. There's nothing really wrong at the moment, and I want to stay ahead of it.
Yeah.
The kind of maintenance you would do on your car,
Well, you said house earlier. I thought that was a really good example because a lot of people, I don't know if you guys have ever moved before, but every time I move, like right before we move, we always fix a whole bunch of stuff. We got the blinds, got this, fix that, and new paint. And, you gotta make the house look great before you sell it. So you always touch everything up and make it look really good. And then you always have this thought, as you're selling it, you're like, why didn't we do this when we lived here? For us, this was great. I think a lot of people don't ever think about their body in that way. And I think the quicker the turnover time in the house, probably the more likely it's to get taken care of. If you go to an Airbnb house, those are usually taken care of very well because it's always a quick turnover. So it's always got to be at a sellable type thing. And I think the more you can keep your body in that state where it's more like an Airbnb where, you're consistently making sure it's taken care of to the utmost. You're always keeping up with it versus right before you sell a house or somebody that never sells their house, never takes care of it. You might as well enjoy it in the years that you have it.
We're going to get some medical stuff here, but Colton was throwing something out. You're on our live show here. We'd like to cover some kind of, our slogan, we kind of cover, culture and current events through the lens of conservative Christian values. He threw out something that was viral. More people are on this story right now than actually watched the Super Bowl this last year. It's a global phenomenon that somehow slipped through the cracks for me. Wasn't something I was looking at over the weekend, but you and I kind of both get a reaction from this at the same time as we get started today.
Yeah, we'll start out. I'd like to kind of deep dive into more of the nuts and bolts of the story here, but he has this great video that kind of summarizes at least the beginning of the story.
Let's just ask him, have you heard of
Sailing with Phoenix? Have you ever heard of Sailing with Phoenix yet? Have you heard of
I haven't.
Oliver, the corporate America dropout that is sailing the world? Not heard of him yet?
No.
Pretty fascinating story. Check this out.
Oliver. I work a corporate job at a tire shop. I absolutely hate this life. Yeah, I'm going to buy a sailboat and I'm going to sail around the world for the rest of my life until I die. This is the start of my journey. And this is day one of crossing the Pacific Ocean and sailing from Oregon to Hawaii. And I made it past the graveyard of the Pacific, and this is my first time sailing outside of a river. And I'm going for Hawaii. So it could take me anywhere between 20 to 30 days. So feel free to follow the journey. There is nothing but open ocean and a beautiful sunset. I did it. I did it.
So that video alone there, Dr. Troy, has like 30-something million views. If you go through his channel, they all have millions of views. Every video. I started following him about 5 weeks ago now. And when I started following him, he had just like cashed out 401k, was like fixing up his boat. He had to like he basically like bootstrap this to the nth degree, like whatever you would typically like, hey, I want to make sure this is great. Like he was fixing holes and like switching out the diesel heater and was like fixing stuff as best he could in order to strap this thing together. But he actually landed yesterday or on Sunday. So on Sunday he landed. It was a 25-day journey. And when he got there, I mean, everyone's loving this story. This hit like a cultural phenomenon because everyone's loving the story. Anderson Cooper and Bret Baier, so both CNN and Fox News have had this guy.
Bipartisan mission this kid's on.
He is. Yeah. The governor of Hawaii came out to greet him when he actually landed, and they had this huge press conference, and like hundreds of people. When he left, nobody knew him. Like he was not a cultural phenomenon, almost zero following. Like literally, he had just a couple thousand followers like weeks ago. And now he's at 1.8 million followers on this journey. It hit a cultural chord that I think is pretty fascinating.
So let me ask you a couple questions. So it doesn't sound like he came from like a wealthy family and I'm going to buy a yacht and travel the world. How did he put this together? This idea?
Yeah. Well,
because Dr. Troy and I are kind of the...
Yeah, I thought you were asking him. I was like, he just found out about the story.
The old timers here. And you just referenced me before we went live here a little bit ago.
I did, yeah. You don't know the story either. So he was working at Discount Tire, working the corporate job, had a 401k, went in for a medical, just checkup and found out he has this like rare bone disease. More than likely they're saying by like 35, he could be paralyzed. And so his bones are deteriorating constantly. And he was like, man, what am I even doing? He goes, I'm doing a coloring book here, and I don't even know why I even started on this page. Like I'm just like following somebody else's blueprint here for my life, what I'm supposed to be doing. And so literally he actually went from that office to his boss and said, I'm quitting. He's like, I'm going to sail. And they're like, what are you going to do? He's like, I don't know. I'm going to sail until I die. I don't know. I'm just going.
And so when you say he couldn't have a huge 401k because he's a young guy.
Yeah. I think it was like $10,000 in his 401k is what he cashed out. So he had like 10 grand in his 401k. So not a lot. I mean, just been putting into it for a few years here. He's 29 years old now. So he just cashed out his 401k, took any savings he had, and then he liquidated his entire asset base, which was like his couch and his TV and everything, like marketplaced everything off, and just everything was gone. Bought the sailboat with every dollar he had and scrapped it, and then like DoorDash to get the money to pay for like everything he needed. Just kind of scrapped for like a while here until when he said it there, he got onto the ocean. The only thing he'd ever sailed was in a river. Like he just learned how to sail and then popped on the ocean. It's a fascinating story. Been fun to follow.
He's an interesting character there because he's kind of like a homeless handsome. Vibe. He's young. There's interesting elements, to this story. And what do you think it is, though, that caught America's attention in such a big way, Dr. Troy?
Well, I instantly saw just the boldness. So that's what people are just craving right now. The pure boldness. Even in that first video, you saw just from his mannerisms and his description of how things are going, you could see a couple things in his face. You could see the relief of escaping the bondage of what he was in, the trap that he was in. But at the same time, you could tell there was trepidation there. And when he said, this is the first time off the big river, like you just insert big gulp right down the throat right there. You could actually see that. And so this is my 2 cents, but people are craving authenticity right now. So when you combine boldness with authenticity and someone who's like taking a risk like that, people want to cheer for this guy. People want to cheer for someone who's taking a risk, who's acting boldly, but yet authentically displaying his fear and trepidation and doing it anyway.
Yeah. Can I ask you a different question? This is on the medical side here. Like I said, his whole journey here started because he was at it with the doctor. He sat down with the doctor, got a bad diagnosis, and decided, what connection do you feel like adventure and health and people being like stagnant in their life and maybe unhealthy, but they don't realize, because the day before and the day after, his health didn't change. It was just awareness of his health that changed. Like he was equally on a collision course with not a good thing, but suddenly sparked a different jump when he realized, like, all of us are on a people mover, eventually going to die. And when you realize, like, oh man, my quality of life is going to be less, this, like, that sparked something in him. Talk about the connection with like health and adventure, and
because everybody has that.
Yes.
Yeah,
has that potential.
Yeah, you don't. Nobody knows how long they have. You might think you got another 40 years or 30 years or 50 years or whatever. But to be given a date, it's almost like the Tim McGraw song "Live Like You're Dying." A little bit.
Yep. So my 2 cents for people is always the same. Don't ever take what a doctor says as an exact, number one. So it doesn't, his date, only God knows his date. Number 2, I would not be surprised if something miraculous happens because of this trip, because of the decision he made. When we are experiencing joy, when we're experiencing life, when we feel on purpose, our cells operate differently. Now, I don't know what his actual diagnosis is, and I don't know if it's a genetic and it's going to just play out this way. But I've seen and I know that people are equipped for miracles to happen. And when we are experiencing joy, the joy of life, the fruit of the Spirit, when we're experiencing that, then our cells operate differently. So we may see some changes internally, or at the very least, he is actually living his life to the fullest. And if he does depart us early, and if he does end up leaving us in his mid-30s, he's going to experience the last days of his life in a joyful nature. And it's like what you said earlier, Colton. And people are living too short and dying too long. And so he's living right now. He's actively living.
There's an interesting element to this story because a lot of people his age, he was in I think Discount Tire is a great company.
Yeah.
Their corporate culture's, great. And I'm a customer of theirs. Their stores are run well. The story of the guy that started it.
I've read some stories from the guy that started it.
Yeah.
It's like 2 thumbs up. Like great guy, great story.
But it's still something that wasn't what he wanted to be doing. He was kind of feeling it. And then that diagnosis kind of gave him a push over the edge. But he's part of a generation that I think a lot of people get to that spot of, I don't like what I'm doing, and so I'm going to smoke weed a lot. I don't like what I'm doing, so I'm going to just, play video games, and any number of ways to sort of just anesthetize yourself from the discomfort of what your life is, but kind of just numb out. And I think what's for me, what's compelling about this story is, instead of like numbing out, he like leaned in. He didn't drift away from the pain because the diagnosis didn't change, but he leaned into life more, not withdrew more from life. And I think that's kind of inspiring. I think that's probably why so many people relate to this story.
His biggest video is the one that I played you there. Like every one of his videos gets like 5 million, 6 million views. Even the one of him like taking a shower the one day because he's like, this is how I did it on my boat. People ask about this. Like that still got like 3 million views. I don't know what that'd be like to get millions of views on just showering on a sailboat. But that video had 30 million views, and he didn't arrive at his destination. He arrived at the start of his adventure. And I think a lot of people, like the literal cover photo on this thing says, I did it. And I think, there's this like, there's a lot of people that dream. There's this like, a dream is a wish you hope would come true, all this stuff. But he actually, I did it is in connection to the start of a journey. And that the most views aren't even at when he landed. This isn't the biggest interaction he's had. Point. The biggest interaction is that he had this idea in his head and decided, the world is more of a blank page than it is a coloring book, and I can make my life what I want it to look like, and I did it. I think that's a really, really, really powerful piece of the story. The accomplishment was the beginning of the journey.
Yeah, absolutely. It was the choice. It was the choice to actually do it, and then taking that leap of faith. That was the thing. Yeah. That's the seed that's now being watered.
That's exciting. All right, we're gonna get to some more health stuff, but one of the biggest things that's happened, we've railed for 4 years. A lot of the reason for this show starting in the first place was, COVID issues, having a lot of, there's still more doctors that had answers there than people even know because it was so squashed, out there. But we started, interviewing doctors that had solutions when the world was just fear. Fox and CNN both were brought to you by Pfizer, and all they had was a death ticker, on TV. A lot of that's kind of now unraveling a little bit. But Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Had a video that went out, I think this morning, at least that's when I saw it, with the biggest news I've seen on this front since I heard the word COVID for the first time. Maybe play that real quick.
Hi, everybody. I'm Robert F. Kennedy Jr., your HHS secretary, and I'm here today with NIH Director Dr. 𝗕𝗢𝗙𝗢𝗢𝗢 and FDA Commissioner Dr. 𝗦𝗢𝗢𝗢𝗢𝗢. I couldn't be more pleased to announce that as of today, the COVID vaccine for healthy children and healthy pregnant women has been removed from the CDC recommended immunization schedule. Last year, the Biden administration urged healthy children to get yet another COVID shot despite the lack of any clinical data to support the repeat booster strategy in children.
That ends today. It's common sense and it's good science.
There's no evidence healthy kids need it today, and most countries have stopped recommending it for children.
We're now one step closer to realizing President Trump's promise to make America healthy again.
Produced by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Man.
Does it feel like you're like in a dream a little bit? Even seeing anybody in a position of power in our government makes sense?
Yeah, you guys might have to give me a moment here. I'm like tearing up
I
right
know.
now. I need a moment for real. Like, this is stuff that I have been waiting for, fighting for. You guys know what we've been up against, but combined with this is just the beginning, because recently in the last week we also had Dr. McCullough and Dr. Vaughn and these other doctors speaking in front of the congressmen and the senators, and it went so well. And so we know what we know right now as far as what's about to happen. And this is just the beginning, because as the science comes out, it's been out, but as the science becomes more and more available to the general population, you're seeing things. In fact, I have one of my patients that we've treated for vaccine injury from Canada had her neurologist for the first time say, yes, your neurologic disorder probably came from the vaccine.
Wow.
And we're seeing that more and more. So the first time that's actually happened, even in Canada.
Huge.
It's a scary feeling when you feel like you're your own personal, private, independent person. Like you have, you're sort of the captain of your own ship. To kind of tie into our previous story.
Good job.
But that all was quickly taken away. Where all of a sudden, you saw millions of people who. You could tell they didn't really believe in the fear-mongering at a certain point, but it went on so much longer than necessary. They're sitting outside of restaurants, and they're like, their number was called, they're waiting outside, and they're, hey, okay, your table's ready. And they look around and get a rag out of their purse and put over their faces. They walk in, blah, 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 and they sit down and take it off. Like, when we're forced to behave in a way that we know is not true, because if that couple going into their table, and we all saw millions of them, if they were walking their table, they were afraid of what was going on. They would have been wearing a hazmat suit or something. Or they wouldn't have been at the restaurant.
Yeah.
But when you pull out a dirty piece of a T-shirt, from your purse and blah, 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 okay, sit down. It was a scary time to be when you have people in charge that could make people operate against their common sense. For me, it was a psychological experiment on the American people and the people of the world. It's interesting that there was the level of compliance, and it played against the nature of Americans, people of the world, but I'm just going to speak for our own, are really good people. They're like, okay, I want to go by the rules. I want to be a good guy. I do care about other people, so you're kind of want to, they complied and I don't know, whatever, 60% of small to medium-sized businesses, closed, during that time. It's interesting to see that we went through that. I'm curious if that would make us more compliant in the future because they've broken that will, or if it'll make us more dependent upon truth, real science, in the future coming forward as other things come out, and what impact this has on the way people think about diseases, germs, sickness, and health.
It all kind of depends on what happens next. So there's a couple things and a couple scenarios that have to occur. So the people who are adamantly arguing, saying trust the science when there was no science to validate their argument, if they come back with their tail between their legs and they're saying like, yeah, I'm sorry, and that's happened a couple times by some major players in the healthcare field, that has to happen. Number two, the people who have been fighting for the truth and for everything to come out, they need to lead with grace and mercy, but not relent. It has to continue.
That's a good combo.
Brought forth. It's a good combination, grace and mercy, and I'm not stopping.
Yeah.
Because the truth is this here, and the truth is we were potentially manipulated, and if it was not for the United States of America right now going through and pushing back, we would be in a completely different state and position around the world, because we saw who was just instantly compliant. We saw in Canada, where I grew up, we saw them take away and shut down the banking for the truckers. They just did that to a medical doctor up there in Canada just in the last week as well.
Wow.
So they froze his bank accounts for coming out against the vaccine.
Wow.
So there's still an issue when it comes to a lot of these other worlds. And I was in the Front Line Alliance meeting down in Atlanta a couple weeks back, and there's some good things happening around the world right now. They said just to watch New Zealand. New Zealand will be one of those first countries that actually breaks away from the compliance factor. They said Canada's lost. They're just unfortunately not there because the people just went with the flow. But watch New Zealand. Watch what happens in the upcoming months with New Zealand, because they got so blindsided and they are angry right now. And so we're starting to see these other countries step up, and United States gets a lot of backlash around the world when it comes to how we are and who we are. But in the grand scheme of things, in history, it's going to go down where the United States, because of their boldness and how they stood up, really did help impact and save the world.
Well, it's kind of like the kid on the boat. Courage is contagious. Yep. And I'm not saying everybody needs to quit their job, cash in their 401k, and buy a sailboat, but there's some micro version of that, I think, in everybody's life. It's like,
I know somebody out there is praying that that's what you're telling her to do.
Yeah.
They're like, see, David White had told me I need to cash it out. And
no, but I am saying, if you've always thought about learning how to play guitar and you're 60,
yep.
There's two groups of people in the world, people who can play guitar and people who can't. It's not a matter of being great. It's a matter of, hey, I can play 3 chords in a bunch of country songs on the guitar, or whatever, go hike the Appalachian Trail, go do a thing, the thing that's burning in you, like take the action on those. And it's definitely a contagious thing. Let's go to a question here. And then we're going to get to your gems here in a second. But this person says, I have hypothyroidism, secondary to genetic. Oh my goodness. It's a combination of a big word, and I don't have my glasses on. Colton, you want to give it a shot?
Hemochromatosis.
Good job. You should be a doctor. Yes. I want off my thyroid meds safely. There's a couple of thyroid.
I was going to say, actually, another question. Thyroid must be the name of the game today. Hi, Dr. Spurrill. What can I do to help with hyperthyroidism naturally? I was on Armour Thyroid for 8 or 9 years and weaned myself off of it and had no issues, but know I need to support my thyroid. Continued, I'm gaining weight back and believe it's my thyroid. I'm 60 and postmenopausal. So a lot of thyroid stuff today. We were talking beforehand what the theme of the health part would be, whether it's mental or this or that, whatever. But apparently it's thyroid.
Yeah, well, thyroid is the number one, especially in women, the number one endocrine hormone problem that we're seeing out there. So the first thing is hemochromatosis is usually the men who get that. So women are usually the carriers. So the first one, I don't know if that's male or female, but hemochromatosis, let me just say this, I have hemochromatosis. So that is my genetic predisposition as well. It's where you actually hang on to iron. And so you store iron in your body, and then your ferritin can go high, which can cause inflammatory stuff. The good part of that is I get to go around telling everyone that I really am Iron Man. So I give you permission to use that joke. So Iron Man or Iron Woman. So with hemochromatosis, you have to do blood donation. You have to do bloodletting. That's the only way to get the iron down. You can also stop cooking with iron skillets and things like that. If you do that, cast iron is good for most women in particular. But you want to actually reduce your iron. But you have to do blood donation. Now, the second part of that is there's a lot of different things that can cause the hypothyroid. Too much iron is part of it, but you need B vitamins, you need tyrosine, you need iodine. And if you live in central United States, the number one cause is low iodine. You get iodine from the ocean, salt water, as far as the ocean itself. Iodine deficiency is very, very common. And then you have to make sure you don't have antibodies. So the traditional doctors don't test all the time for antibodies, because Hashimoto's, which is creating antibodies against your thyroid, that can pop up there. And so there's a lot of different causes for that. Environmental chemicals that mimic hormones like estrogen are the number one cause for low thyroid. And you get that from Roundup or glyphosate. Everything RFK is actually working towards. He'll get to this one eventually, because this is the number one cause of endocrine disruptors, which is your hormone disruptors. So anything that mimics a pesticide or is a pesticide mimics a hormone a lot of times, and then that causes the thyroid issues. So there's some discerning there. When you get a thyroid lab, make sure you get the full panel. That's 8 markers. So that's T3, T4, free T3, free T4, thyroid antibodies, TPO, TGA, even FT3, which is RT3, reverse T3. So those are different things that can block the actual thyroid. The last one is, I'm just going to say this, if you have any type of adrenal stress, cortisol issues from a sleep disorder or blood sugar imbalance, that'll actually inhibit the thyroid as well. So a stress response can start to shut down the thyroid. There's only 8 things that cause thyroid, but they're 8 big things. So
well, I've always heard those in connection. Like someone's like, they say like they have this thyroid issue, and then they say my adrenals are shot. Like I've always heard those terms together, adrenal and I didn't know what the connection was between the two, but you always hear adrenal and thyroid in connection.
Yeah, the adrenal glands will cause insulin resistance. So adrenal hormones will actually make the insulin more resistant and negate the actual thyroid hormone itself. So that's why improving your stress response, improving your deep restorative sleep helps both with blood sugar management and with the thyroid.
What would be a symptom of somebody that might have a thyroid? Like if they're sitting here today, they're like, I don't know, I've never, like they've not taken a thyroid test, they don't know their issues, but they're like, what would be a symptom that might be connected to? And so you're not diagnosing anybody. This is not a diagnosis, but if they're sitting here today and they're like, man, like I've heard you say sometimes you're like this, and this. If you ever feel like this, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I totally do, and then that was connected back to something else. So I
don't even have a uterus.
What might be a symptom somebody might be experiencing if their thyroid is not optimally
by far
performing?
So thyroid is like the key that turns on the engine. So it sets your idle speed for metabolism. So weight gain is number one. So if you're like, I'm working out, I'm eating the same, and all of a sudden I'm gaining weight. I'll give you one extreme example. So there was a personal trainer in her 20s who went and got dental work. The dental work happened to have mercury. She was extremely sensitive to mercury. She gained 10 pounds a month for 4 months in a row. So 40-pound weight gain from a personal trainer, until it was identified that it was the mercury she was reacting to in her tooth. Pulled the mercury out. She lost 10 pounds a month for the next 4 months and back to her normal weight. So mercury was what was disrupting her thyroid function for her in that scenario. So weight gain is number one. Number two, hair falling out or coarse hair is another symptom. Sluggishness, brain fog, or mental fatigue for hypothyroid. Rapid heart rate or anxiety is hyperthyroid. So if you're actually overproducing the thyroid, so that's kind of like the gas pedal is maxed out, and you're getting a lot of those symptoms. And then you can have like nail issues in the finger beds and stuff like that as well. So hair, anything that grows or metabolism. So hair, skin, nails start to become dysfunctional as well.
There's a follow-up question here. Is the iodine safe with thyroid issues? And then do you have any recommendations for dosages on iodine? How people know how much, or is it, like vitamin C, you can just take as much as you want, or is it not a thing? Or
well, okay, so great question. So there is I'm going to recommend a book first. So there's a great book called The Iodine Crisis by 𝗦𝗢𝗢𝗓. And she did a second book that was written by Dr. Brownstein. Her information comes from Dr. Brownstein's book, who is the guru who really started the iodine. And his book was Iodine, Why We Need It. Now, I'm going to say this. In The Iodine Crisis by 𝗦𝗢𝗢𝗓, she talks about the history of iodine. And you want to talk about COVID, there it is right there. So you want to talk about COVID, they based an entire couple decades, 5 decades, off of bad science when it came to iodine. And she walks through that. So they did testing on radioactive iodine and then said, oh, that's the same as the iodine God made that's in the ocean. No, it's not. Very, very big difference. So a lot of the controversy around taking iodine when you have thyroid problems is for autoimmune thyroid. And it is a complete farce. Now, there are occasional iodine allergies because of the chemical iodine that they've used, but there's a reason why in the 50s they put iodine in our bread. It's because of how iodine deficient everyone was.
Wow.
And if you remember, people who have been around since the 50s, remember, you put iodine in everything. Any open wound, they put iodine on.
Right.
They put iodine for everything because we're so deficient. Iodine is antiviral, antimicrobial, antiparasitic. So it actually helps create an environment for your immune system to destroy infections. So in the 50s, they replaced iodine in the bread with bromide. Bromide happens to displace the actual iodine out of the body. So you can read through the book, but we actually use high dose iodine, and we have had reversals of fibrocystic breast disease, multiple case studies within the book, and testimonials of breast cancers being improved, prostate cancers. There is so much application for iodine. So my answer is this. If you're doing high dose iodine, it is best to be under the supervision of someone who knows how to manage it, because there are parameters. We have to make sure your B vitamins are good, your vitamin D is good, your magnesium is good, and your glutathione is good. So we balance all those in there for the complex diseases. But iodine, thyroid, when you're actually looking at your thyroid hormone, it's T3 and T4. Do you know what the 3 and the 4 stand for? 3 units of iodine and 4 units of iodine.
Wow.
It's literally what your thyroid hormone is made of.
Wow. I love that that disclaimer there. There's a guy online that does these like ask a lawyer kind of things. Like he pulls up at a park. He's got the sign. This is like ask a lawyer. He's got his dog there. And he starts out every time. He says, "I'm a lawyer. I am not your lawyer. This is my public service to the world because there's so many questions and it's really hard to get a lawyer to sit down and answer your questions. So this is free service. This is all of this is under the understanding it's best to work with your office specifically. Officialsynapse.com. And again, you guys have everybody under the sun. You can take care of everything from this kidney issue. One of my favorite places to go to is on the top of the page there. It says conditions we address, because a lot of people might be having issues and they don't even know it's something that could be addressed. So you guys go through and you said Hashimoto's earlier, and I remember we did a whole show one time on Hashimoto's. So I would have thought that's something you could order at a sushi restaurant.
I thought it was the guy that invented Bitcoin.
he's now the 11th wealthiest person in the world. But yeah, so you go to conditions we address, and they have all these different conditions, all these different issues. A lot of the symptoms, and a lot of people, you're talking about restoring the house or the car. A lot of people, they have a light on the dashboard of like, man, I just always have this pain in my wrist or this elbow, or I don't know why, but I just kind of get like the flashy eyes every now and then. So they have these issues, and instead of dealing with the root cause of it, they take ibuprofen and they just smash out the light on their dashboard, or take the bulb out so they don't see the light popping on anymore. You guys kind of dig through the crap and actually get to what is the real issue here. And that's one of my favorite things about you. You're actually dealing with the root causes of the problem, not just dealing with the symptom.
Well, and the biggest thing is you saw that big, long list of the different disorders. Here's what we actually do. Here's the secret. We just look at mental, chemical, and physical dysfunction. We measure what's not working. And when you restore those, a lot of different things will actually get better. So the same imbalance in one person will cause chronic fatigue, in the other person, fibromyalgia, but they've got the exact same scenario. So because we're uniquely different, we have different genetics, we have different expressions. So when you actually look at the foundational components of how are you operating mentally, chemically, physically, and spiritually, it leads you down a different path. So you just restore the normal God-given communication systems, and then you see what literally gets cleaned up and cleared up. And we have a wall of fame of people who are diagnosed with MS who are now walking, or people who, we had one lady who jumped from a burning building and broke her pelvis and her leg and multiple bones. And we've got a picture of her water skiing afterwards. So everyone's got a story, everyone's different, but you just need to restore the foundational stuff. That's why there's so much information out there. We've now gone from an age, when I first started doing this 30 years ago, people didn't have information. Now, because of Dr. Google, people have too much information, and they have to look at it and say, what's actually relevant to me? What's pertinent to my scenario? And that's really the key. What is pertinent to your scenario?
Well, I don't know how much time we got left with you, but I don't know if we got through 3 gems, but can you at least give us one or two Dr. Troy gems? These are the best part. I love these.
Yeah, I like these gems too. So these are just things that I have observed over the years, and so I put them down as gems because there's things that aren't really necessarily in the scientific literature, or you'd have to search hard. So this first one is for fussy eaters, for kids. If you have a fussy eater for a kid, think zinc deficiency. Zinc also encourages smell and actually helps with eating. So it normalizes smell. So some kids, they actually have a zinc deficiency, which will cause stomach and bacterial imbalances in their gut, which affects their smell. So when you actually have something that you think is pleasant, they smell it and it's offensive. And so they don't eat it. It literally turns their stomach off. So think zinc deficiency, and you want to go low and slow. What that means is just small amounts of zinc and then slowly increase. And with the kids, you can start with 10 to 15 milligrams. If you do it on an empty stomach, it will cause nausea when they're deficient. If you get nausea from zinc, it means you're deficient. So do it on a full stomach and just increase a little bit until you get to 50 milligrams with the kids. And then watch what happens. It takes a couple months, but watch what happens. They start opening up their diet and they'll eat those veggies that they didn't want to eat before. Especially sulfur-containing foods become less offensive.
Wow.
That is a gem.
That's awesome.
That's right in the crosshairs of defining what is a gem.
Wait, so when you say sulfur, would that be like eggs as well? Because I know sometimes
eggs, no. So eggs cause sulfur on the back end. That's a whole other story. So, but that would be, there's a little bit in there, but it's more like broccoli and it's asparagus and things like that. Because zinc and sulfur combine together to make what's called the MT barrier system in the gut.
Okay.
And this is what autistic kids are lacking in. They don't have that barrier system. And so zinc and sulfur go a long way to actually help them reduce their brain inflammation.
I've heard of like the mpHFR disorder, like that sometimes gets triggered by vaccine issues. Is that kind of this related to the same world?
No, that's a
different thing.
Usually that's a methylation problem. Yeah, so completely different. Other than the fact they both start with MT.
Okay,
that's the same.
I was jumping. Also, I did find your wall of fame here. When you walk into your office, it's right on the right here. So you got the wall of fame here on your wall here.
Wow.
Cool.
You just pull up those pics. That's pretty quick.
Yeah.
How you do that?
It's a great office though, man. You guys should go on the Google map here and take a tour of the office. They got all kinds of cool things here. You can see their mission, the Synapse way, how they do stuff, and then over here you got your the staff. So you really do. You got a whole giant team of people. It's not just Dr. Troy. You got all the doctors here covered to see to take care of people. So that was Gem 1. What is Gem 2?
Gem 2, if you don't get enough salt, you're going to actually crave sugar. And it's a bizarre thing, but most people right now are actually salt deficient. So we're finding a lot of sodium chloride deficiencies. And again, my PA and I were down in Atlanta, Georgia at the Frontline Doctors annual conference, and there was an oncologist there. He was a traditional oncologist, but he now recognizes that he has to treat people differently because of COVID, because of the vaccine injuries. And so he had to actually put them on salt to help maintain a blood pressure that was actually manageable to help with his cancer patients. And we found the same thing. So there's an electric current. You know, if you're in a puddle and it's salt water, an electric wire falls in there, it can actually cause, electrocution.
Yep.
We have been finding that we're all very, very electric ourselves. And we have been finding that people are short fusing, basically. They can't carry a current. So we've had to increase salt in people to get their brain to wake up, to get their cells to wake up. And so it's one of the reasons why you're seeing so many people go to carnivore, because what do they promote in carnivore?
Salt.
Fat, protein, and salt.
Yeah.
Fat, protein, and salt.
So would when you say salt, would that be like, Himalayan sea salt on your food, or like something like I drink a lot of this stuff. It's called 𝗕𝗧𝗏. 𝗕𝗧𝗏 hydration electrolyte powder. Really, really, really good stuff. I feel the days where I have this stuff. I do this product called Morning Kick and COVID Light. I do a mixture of all kinds of stuff, but this 𝗕𝗏𝗏 is huge for me, especially if I like working out and I've been real sweaty. I'll take a scoop of that and like it feels like life comes back into my bones. Would this be kind of the realm, or more like sea salt on your food?
Yeah,
or
more
both?
like sea salt. This is the electrolyte. So this has some of it, but it's got the potassium. But what we're talking is specifically sodium and chloride. So like the sea salts, because the sea salts have the 12 to 14 different minerals that are just low end minerals. Now I will say this: I used to recommend Celtic sea salt all the time until I saw 3 weeks ago they're being sued for lead. They found lead in their salt. So there are organic sea salts, but if you can get the organic sea salts, I think Redmond's is one.
Yeah,
that's why I use Redmond's
out there.
My wife's got a big bag
And
of that stuff.
So those are the best, and we're having people do. I'll say this too: when your adrenals become compromised, there's an old cocktail of vitamin C with sea salt and coconut water, and that's got your potassium, your sodium chloride, and all the 12 to 14 minerals, and it helps restore your adrenal glands. So that's a stress response. So this is one of the reasons why people are in such need of salt right now, because of the stress of COVID, both physically, mentally, and the inflammatory toxicity of the spike protein.
Huge.
You guys at officialsynapse.com, you can get this kind of information directly to you based on your specific issues. You fill out their discovery call information there and get it tailor-made. You may say, but he's not addressed the issue with my toe. Like whatever you have specifically, they can cater it directly.
I got this crazy fungus. It's
directly to you. I got a 𝗧𝗢𝗄𝗧 down there and needed somebody to look at it. So,
but yeah, they could take care of all of it. Again, we went through the conditions. They address almost everything. But again, that free discovery call, you just type in your information here, and they can get a hold of you that way. Or you can literally click the free discovery call, and then you can book it from there. And I think that was 2. Do you have one more gem for us?
Absolutely. ADHD and focus. You're going to be seeing a lot of people talking about this right now, and I want to reframe what that actually is, because ADHD is actually an escape mechanism for people. So you were talking about before, or people are going to weed or going to video games or whatever it is. It's an escape from their reality. When you actually are experiencing ADHD or focus problems, it means you've breached the capacity for your prefrontal cortex. So our prefrontal cortex basically assesses the world and our environment around us, and then it's part of our decision-making tree. So when you actually feel like you've lost the ability to focus, it means the capacity has been breached. Now, there's a lot of things that do that. Sometimes it's just pure volume of digital information that's coming at us, because we have cell phones, computers, all kinds of things coming at us. Screen time is just up. Sometimes it's things like red dye. There are different chemicals in our food that'll actually make that a little bit harder for people. And so I want people to really get, though, that it is a sign of an overwhelmed brain. You don't need to, the medications they use are on par with cocaine and stimulants. And so, taking caffeine or taking a big stimulant to actually hyperfocus, that's not solving the problem. The problem is something has just breached your capacity. So you have to find out, is it physical, chemical, or mental? If it's mental, meaning life is too stressful, or like if you have a blood sugar issue, that can actually set it off as well. So you're not able to get the fuel to the brain. We're seeing a lack of oxygen getting to the brain. So you're going to see almost an epidemic. We're already seeing it right now in our clinic of people coming in with ADHD and focus issues. And it's simply because their capacity has just decreased. They're just maxed out.
Wow.
sign of the times.
It is. It is. So you guys can go to Official Synapse. That's SYNAPSE. It's on the screen there, but Official SYNAPSE. What does synapse mean? Where'd you get the name synapse from?
So synapse is actually the junction where communication occurs in the brain.
Oh.
So in my mind, health is all about good communication, mentally, chemically, and physically. Spouse to spouse. A breakdown in communication leads to dysfunction, which leads to disease.
Huge.
So, David, you've been married a long time. Knowing that Stacy is always right, that's very helpful for you. Keep your health at its highest level, right?
The basis for communication, for sure.
Yeah.
But you can go to officialsynapse.com, get that free discovery call, and get connected to Dr. Troy. Again, he's the one you want to talk to. When something's going weird, when something's going wrong, you don't want to wait until something goes wrong to get a hold of him, because then it's a little trickier. You got to go through, because they do these initial assessments, and then you have all this great stuff that they get to go through. You want to get a hold of these guys, start on that process. Again, take care of your house. Don't wait until you're about to sell it to get it fixed. Go right away, get it fixed. Officialsynapse.com. Dr. Troy, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Pleasure, guys.
And stick with us, Flyover family. We'll be right back.
My name is Dr. Troy Spurrill, and I'm CEO and founder of Synapse Center for Health and Healing. Well, we're a full functional medicine clinic where we're looking at the entirety of the body. We have nurse practitioners, chiropractors, acupuncture. We do functional restoration with BTL equipment, and we have medical doctors on staff as well to help with PRP and other injections for pain relief. We do a multitude of services, labs, nutrition, counseling, health coaching, we've got it all. We are constantly being asked about how to improve their immune system. How do I go through a flu season without getting a cold? I myself have gone 30 years without missing a day of work, never gotten a cold, never been sick. And we just show our patients how to do that. We answer those questions. Why am I tired? Why do I have pain? So if you're watching this right now, just go to our website, officialsynapse.com, click on free discovery call, answer 3 simple questions, and we'll get you started. One more thing, we are the highest rated, most reviewed functional medicine clinic in all of Minnesota.
Crazy things going on in the global markets, tariffs coming back, tariffs going back in, tariffs backing off. There's erratic movement in everything from crypto to the dollar to silver, gold, lots of things going on beyond my comprehension. So we have with us today the author of the book, Thriving in the Economic Tsunami, a guy with not 1, but 2 PhDs, Dr. Kirk Elliott.
Yeah! The man!
Hey, how are you guys?
Good, doctor. How you doing?
I'm doing well.
With slightly more testosterone-fueled show today, and not quite as attractive. Stacy's still out of town, so we're filling in here with Junior and myself. But we're mostly in receive mode on this one, and it's your brain that we're after here. So
it's the big topic. You know, when you listen to like Daily Wire has this like quick 14-minute show they do each morning called the Morning Wire, and it's like, what are the biggest things going on? They're kind of just water skiing over the topics. They're not scuba diving into them. But like 3 of the 4 topics they talked about this morning were right up your wheelhouse. You know, from the stuff we're gonna be talking about today, the stuff we were talking about before the show started here. So really, really interested in what's going on in the markets.
Well, I think a really good place to start is a continuation of what we've been talking about literally for months, and that's Trump's tariffs, because they kind of tapered off just for a little bit, right? When Trump took the 145% tariff off of China and went down to 30, and there's going to be this 90-day kind of pause, right? Well, we had actually talked about how, okay, this isn't going to be an ongoing forever pause, right? Because Xi Jinping isn't going to stand for it. And when you start to couple a couple of other stories in there, like the big, beautiful bill, the tariffs are necessary for all of this to work, right? So the stock market went blasting forward when the Chinese tariffs came down. And now that there's European tariffs that are being slapped on, and hefty ones too. So there's a 50% tariff on the European Union, right? And Trump's not looking for a deal. He doesn't want to deal with them. He's just going to slap a 50% tariff on them. So why would he say that? Well, they've been so egregious in some of the some of the bilateral, multilateral trade agreements over the years that Trump said no, for crying out loud. And so when you look at what Europe offers, and by the way, this tariff comes into effect the beginning of July.
Oh,
right?
wow.
So it's long down the road. It's coming up pretty quick. So when you think, Colton and David, what does Europe offer? What kind of things do we buy from Europe? Right? It's like, well,
wine and cheese.
Wine, cheese, cars. Right?
Yeah.
You think of all the cars, whether it's, that are coming from the European Union, whether they're Mercedes or Audi or Porsche or
Ferrari,
Lamborghini,
BMW.
Ferrari, BMW. I mean, good grief. A lot of expensive cars that are going to be 50% more expensive, even though they weren't cheap to begin with, unless, they're manufactured in the United States. Like Mercedes has a plant in Alabama, so those particular models aren't going to be tariffed, right? So,
smart.
So this is what Trump is saying. We just want to bring jobs back to America. This is part of what is going to make the deficits that are going to be increased on the big, beautiful bill tolerable and actually sustainable.
Yeah.
Right. Without this, literally, there is deficits that are going to come from this. This is not, liberal talking points. There is, however, this is why we need to grow the economy to pay for it. Right. So to me, that's a big if. Right? Because if they don't, this is a colossal failure of a bill.
Yeah.
If they do, it changes the way America thrives. Right? And so this is why the left is so opposing this.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like opposing Trump on every single facet of everything that he does because they want this to fail so he can get the blame for it. Right? So here's what else is coming from Europe, though. While this political battle is going on, how about Nestle? Right? Well, chocolate, we get that. What about pharmaceuticals? Right? So France, a huge provider of big pharmaceuticals, right? So all these are going to be more expensive. And also, I was looking at the iPhone. So Trump he was talking to Tim Cook, right, and threatening Apple. It's like, well, we're going to put a 25% tariff on all iPhones that aren't manufactured in America. See, this is kind of a big deal because Apple just put $1.5 billion into a manufacturing plant in India. So what are they going to do? Right? It's like, well, you better start manufacturing in America, right? Because a 25% tariff is going to be really expensive.
Huge.
Now, manufacturing all of that in America is going to make iPhones more expensive, right? So this is the counterpoint.
Yep.
It's like the estimate on an iPhone manufactured in America is $3,500 versus what it is today, and that's obviously for the high end model, right? But still, what is the offset? Well, you manufacture them here, you're going to create jobs here. Right? Jobs create spending, and spending will then keep up with the inflationary pressures of everything that we're seeing with these tariffs. Right? So dissent, Trump, they're absolutely right. If they don't create jobs, then this big, beautiful bill is a colossal fail.
And the Democrats are committed enough, like they're committed enough that they would,
they'll kamikaze if they need to.
They would hurt the pilot to make sure he doesn't land successfully, not realizing they're also on the plane.
Yeah, I mean they will do tactics like that, right? So because I'm not just saying that they will, it's because they've proven that they will over and over and over and over again. There's very little regard for anybody other than their agenda.
Yeah.
Right.
Now,
So
I got a question for you. When you said earlier, you said that if he pulls this off, it's going to be huge for our country. If he pulls off the big, beautiful bill, is able to fund it. Is there anything in there? Because I look at it when we first started talking about tariffs. Kind of the idea was we used to fund our entire country using tariffs, and then we started an income tax. We kind of lowered the tariffs now, so we kind of made our markets more of a global market than in-home structure. And for me, it felt like tariffs were supposed to be replacing income tax, but now it's like we need 100% of the tax and these tariffs now in order to pay for this new thing. Is there anything in these? Because it seems like instead of using tariffs as a tool, he's using it as a political tool. Like I was joking with my dad this morning. It's almost like tariffs were like a belt. And I was like, oh, we're holding up our pants now, great. And it's like, no, that is for spanking. Like he's taking that belt off and just, boom, in China, whoopah, come to dad's room. We're going to do spank time here. And it seems like that's what it's been used for more now. Is there something in the bill, though, that seems like it could bring income into the country in a way that would allow the deficit to get smaller in the future? Or is it more funding of, what is it that's exciting about this bill to you?
So number one is a lot of whenever we're at a point right now, which Arthur Laffer, who basically created the Laffer curve, says when you increase taxes, you generate more government revenue while people still have disposable and discretionary income. Like let's say you have a bunch of money in your wallet, taxes are going up, sales taxes are going up, income taxes are going up. You still have money left at the end of the month. What are you going to do? You're still going to spend. Right. So that the tax increases don't really impact you all that much because you have enough money. Right. So you get to this point of critical mass, though, where when people are living hand to mouth and you keep increasing taxes, people have to curtail their spending. Now, that's going to be damaging to the economy. And that's where increasing taxes reduces government revenue. Right. So this is where Trump is saying, look, we need to lower taxes. If we're going to ever stimulate the economy, we need to lower taxes. So, some proposals on the table are getting rid of taxes for everybody who makes less than $200,000 a year. But offset that with maybe increasing taxes on the ultra wealthy. It's like, okay, this is not necessarily a good thing. Now, maybe not a good social thing to say, right? Because it's very divisive. It's like the rich versus the poor. But here's what happens when you increase taxes on the ultra wealthy. Those ultra wealthy take their businesses overseas. So that's the trade-off. And it's like, where do you find this balance? But here's where the other stuff in this bill, when you create jobs, when you get rid of some of the regulations that are kind of causing the jobs to not be there, you're cutting expenses. You're cutting a lot of expenses. It's like, well, if you're cutting so many expenses, why is the deficit going up? Because this bill adds $5 trillion, by between now and 2035.
That's what I was looking at. Like with all the Doge stuff, like I feel like we've been cutting. It's almost like we go over a budget, and I'm like, man, we cut out Starbucks this month. We cut out this. We cut out that. We cut out this, and then our credit card bill is even higher next month. Like, what? Yeah. Why is the credit card bill even higher? After we got all these cuts.
And are the Republicans doing what they need to do to codify these cuts? Because, when they find these things, like we're even giving money to the Taliban, and they find all these things in Doge, but the Republicans don't seem to be like jumping on this to make these cuts permanent and actually make them effective. We're not really seeing the benefit of it. It's more like exposing all the holes in your budget, but you're not really stopping the spending.
They're not. I mean, this is part of the problem, right? I don't think that enough is being done. I think in theory, this bill has the potential to be amazing because it identifies a lot of the social issues that are plaguing our land, right? It identifies the border. It helps to create jobs and lower taxes. But why is the deficit going up, right? When you've got Doge, that's just like you said, is doing all the stuff. Well, to me, the big thing is the interest rates, because when you're going to have to create money to fund some of these things, interest rates on the debt, interest rates go up, the debt service goes up astronomically, right? So a lot of this is actually debt, interest rates on the debt, well over $1 trillion. Oh, actually well over $1 trillion of that $5 trillion is interest on the debt. Right. Yikes. So here's where Trump and Powell are going at it, because Powell wants to raise interest rates. Right. And he has to kind of raise interest rates now because Moody's downgraded our credit.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like a junk bond. The worse the credit rating, the higher the reward for the investors in it. You have to raise rates on a junkier issue. Well, now that they downgraded, See, this just plays into the politicalness of what's going on. See, now this gives fuel to Jerome Powell saying, I can't lower rates like what Trump wants me to do, which if you lower rates, it lowers the debt service on our debt. These deficits aren't so much. It stimulates the economy. That growth in the economy will help pay for the deficits, as Secretary 𝗬𝗢𝗡 said.
Mm-hmm.
But here's where this becomes so political, because this should have been done on the last administration. It should have been done on the administration before. I'm talking about the credit downgrade. But it wasn't. It's done right now.
Mm-hmm.
So if Trump were to get his way, in my opinion, I think he's a very smart guy. I think there's things in this that he's seeing down the road that if he can grow the economy and he's allowed to grow the economy, it will pay for these deficits. If he can't, well, then it's actually quite terrible, right? And he's going to get the blame for it. And this is where this battle between the rhinos and the Democrats against Trump are actually very problematic, right? But they're not going to get the blame for it. Trump's going to get the blame for it. So what happens with higher interest rates, right? It's not just the debt service on the debt that needs to be paid off. It's all of our debt, right? It's what we're seeing in Japan right now. The Japan bond market is falling off a cliff.
Yeah.
And we have to ask ourselves why. And it's real simple. It's because of rising interest rates. See, in Japan, you've had negative interest rates for a long time. The Japanese yen carry trade, you people could borrow yen at cheap to less than cheap, right? And take that money and invest it in other countries and actually grow their economy. So the Japanese economy was funding global growth. Well, now that the inflation in Japan has gotten so much, you have to start raising rates in Japan. So what is behind their bond collapse? It's the Japanese insurance industry, right? So they're dumping bonds like it's yesterday's trash because rates are going up. Now, here's why this is a very distinctive part about bonds, is interest rates go up, the value of bonds comes down.
Okay.
As interest rates go down, the value of bonds goes up. So if you hold bonds and you need to sell them down the road, you want lower interest rates because the value of the bond is going to be higher. So what's the nature of the insurance industry? It's like, well, they pay beneficiaries and people die, right? So they're constantly selling bonds. So when interest rates are going up and they're having to sell bonds at a lower price, they're losing money hand over fist. So they want to get rid of them now because this is called the duration gap. So the duration gap is they're holding 30-year bonds, but most of the people that have beneficiaries aren't going to live that long, right? There's constantly people dying. So the duration gap is simply, we need to start selling now before interest rates go higher so we don't incur any more losses because we have to keep paying beneficiaries.
Wow.
It's the insurance industry in Japan that's causing this. And okay, note to self, if it's happening there, it's going to happen here.
Yeah.
So what will be the ripple effect? A lot of the commentary I've seen, they're saying there's like a domino effect. It'll go, Japan, then Europe, and then the United States, but it'll sweep through everybody. We're might be the, a couple of dominoes down the road, but this will be a very rapid fall once they, It's like a run on toilet paper when they have COVID. It's kind of like, it's always there. It's always selling. All of a sudden, everybody goes and moves on it. It'll be a very quick sweep. Is that what you see as well?
Well, yeah. And so imagine here in America, who's allocated into bonds? Pension funds, government pensions, state pensions, insurance companies, right? So if you start raising rates, which Powell is going to do, he already said he's probably going to raise rates at the next FOMC meeting, even though Trump says, no, we've got to lower them. Said, I can't. I have to raise them because of the credit downgrade. And so Trump is ultimately going to win in the long run because raising interest rates will kill our bond market. What we're seeing in Japan, it will do the same thing here. Now imagine all these pension holders and all these states that are the baby boomers are retiring.
Yeah.
So they're drawing benefits. These pensions are going to have to start selling bonds. They do not want interest rates to go up. A lot of times people think, oh, interest rates go up. This is great. We're going to get greater interest income, right? However, when you're the holder of that bond, you don't really necessarily care about the interest rate. You care about what is it going to be when you need to sell it, because you know that you have to sell it down the road to fund redemptions. This is what pensions and insurance companies all over are having to deal with in a rising interest rate environment. This is why in the late 70s, a lot of insurance companies went under, right? Because they had to sell to fund redemptions.
And that's June 17th and 18th is the next FOMC meeting. So that's coming up here pretty quick. And that doesn't necessarily mean that's going to happen, but that's his intention. His intention is to raise interest rates. And you're saying the chain reaction that we're seeing in Japan is that by raising interest rates in the current political environment, that caused a massive drop in their treasury bonds. The treasury bonds in America are where a lot of people's retirement and pensions are held up in. And so if that same chain reaction happens here, I'm just trying to play this out, make sure I summarize correctly and I'm not missing anything. Is that kind of what you're saying?
If you can help us understand it, I know our listeners can get it.
Yeah. Talk like a third grader here.
Now, it's not going to happen overnight, right? Okay. Because we're already, let's say we're at 4% interest, right? And it goes up a quarter. So we go from 4 to 4.25. In Japan, you had negative to zero interest rates. So any kind of an increase is like, oh my word, what kind of an increase is anything from zero? It's not 100%, it's not 1,000%. It's like, it's nothing. You can't divide by zero.
Indefinite, yeah.
Yeah, so here, the percentage of growth isn't going to have the same impact. It's something, a 0.25% increase in Japan is massive versus a 0.25% increase in America is not so much, even though it's the same, because we're starting from a higher point. But keep going on, and then we have another quarter, and then maybe we have another quarter.
Yep.
Now we start to see the domino effect and the spiral starting to happen.
Okay.
And when you look at the charts on that, because it is negative, but this is very quick. I mean, in the last couple of years, but then this year, it is almost like vertical spike on those interest rates. That's got to make those guys, sweat run down their backs, over there. I mean, it's literally up like this.
Yeah. So what do you do when the government's running out of money and nobody wants your bonds anymore? You start to print even more. Well, this is why they had to raise rates to begin with, is because they printed too much money. So it's this vicious cycle, right? It's like on the Austin Powers movie, the big huge fat guy. He says,
I eat because I'm unhappy. I'm unhappy because I eat.
Yeah, it's like it's this vicious cycle that you can't get out of, and so this is the problem. When you try to keep markets held together with stimulus money and put a Band-Aid on it, rather than just letting them heal naturally. Like in 2008, 2009, if they would have just let that market heal and correct, we wouldn't be in this problem right now. But what did they do? They threw stimulus money at it. They threw TARP at it. They threw all these other things at it over the years. Whenever there's a crisis, it's like, hey, we've got a printing press. Let's just print money and we'll hide the fact that there's really a problem. Well, then the problem, when it manifests itself, is a big one, like what we're seeing in Japan and like what we will see here if they keep raising interest rates.
And here in the United States, then keep people distracted with the auto pen and, cleaning up the Biden mess and all this, kind of drama. And, Beyonce's the world's greatest country singer,
Epstein killed himself.
Yeah. This can sort of happen over here, and then all of a sudden it's on us at once, and the majority of people don't really adapt. So that's why I'm glad, that we have these conversations with you. What is the best move for people you see this coming? If there is a tsunami coming, how do they protect themselves? I mean, obviously our focus is silver, tangible things that can't be manipulated, printed, and run, but how does owning precious metals protect you against this domino effect that's sweeping the globe?
Well, because it's real, there's a flight for quality that starts to happen. Every time there's a crisis globally throughout history, when people don't know what to believe anymore because the foundations around them are eroding, and the normalcy bias starts to fade, meaning, Well, it did. These kind of things didn't impact me in the past, so they're not going to impact me now and in the future. Right. So people are slow to change. Right. So, but we're at that point where the slow to change is now we've kind of run that course. And I think people are going to be quick to change because we've already lived through a lot of the chaos and things aren't working out so hot. So this is where gold and silver as a flight for quality come into play. What do I mean by flight for quality? It's like it's tangible. It's real. You can't print it out of thin air. It's a scarce resource. Right. It goes up with inflation. You know, this is why central banks, hedge funds, billionaires all flock into it, right? When there's crisis times, but especially during inflation times.
Yeah.
And when you've got crisis and inflation, when it's an inflationary crisis, that's what actually makes it a really, you know, I hate to use the gambling terms, but it's a safe bet, right? You want to minimize risk and maximize return. That's what gold and silver bring to people in times like this.
So good.
I know the dollar's fallen so fast. I heard two different. This just jumped out at me. You know, Tom Cruise had a movie come out this weekend. I think the movie industry kind of just wishes he could come up with something every year because he makes these movies that are what
do they call it?
Profitable. People go see them, which is a rare thing, you know, in Hollywood. But they referenced the current Mission Impossible movie because it's, you know, the big blockbuster this weekend. They're comparing it to the last one that came out. It was 2018 or 2019, and they're given the numbers, but then they always give this caveat, and those numbers aren't adjusted for inflation. Well, they used to use terms like adjusted for inflation for something from the 50s or, you know, 30 years ago, not like 3 and 4 years ago.
Such a good point.
And so when they have to use the term, and those numbers aren't adjusted for inflation for the last Mission Impossible movie, which they come out, I'm like, wow, that means it's happening so fast that those numbers are irrelevant from the last movie that came out in short windows. It's happening so fast.
Wow.
We're boiling at an incredible rate. So I'm very thankful we have you.
Can I ask one more question here?
Yeah.
You're talking about tensions, not tensions, pensions that people have. I know people's retirement accounts are kind of a touchy subject, but also it's a specialty of yours. You're able to really help people with that. What are some ways, if people are listening to this today and they're like, oh my gosh, he said pension, what's our pension? And they start looking it up. Oh my gosh, the majority of our pension is in U.S. Treasury. Like they start kind of pulling that string. What options are available to people? Can they even get money out of those accounts? That's a question we get all the time. They're like, hey, I have this pension account. Can I even get my money out? What kind of accounts can people move their money over into?
It depends. There's a critical date on pensions where once you retire, you have this date of, oh, do you want to receive interest payments for the rest of your life or for the next 20 years or whatever? If you've gotten to that point, you really can't do anything because you've given up control to the pension owner, which is actually the pension. You're the recipient. You're not necessarily the owner. You're the recipient of it. Now, if you're working, you're about to retire, you just retired, and you have this option, I would roll it over into a traditional IRA. That's the out. That's the tax-free rollover, where then you have control over it for the rest of your life. If you do that, then we could put it into precious metals. You could put it into gold, silver. You could put it into stocks, bonds, real estate, mutual funds, whatever you want, right? So I would, you know, but if you've already rolled it over, you might not even have investment direction, right? Because they control it. They control the asset allocation. They control everything because it's their fund, and you just keep getting the income streams, you know, as long as you can, right? But
and on that, do they guarantee percentage? I've not looked at this too much, but do they guarantee percentages when they're like, hey, you know, do you want interest payments for the rest of it? Do they actually guarantee the backing on that, no matter what the bonds do, or is it still connected to how the Treasury bonds do?
Well, it's usually a function of their income. So it's like, you know, all of them are different. I mean, you can't make a broad brush statement, but generally speaking, it's like if you've worked for 20 years, you're going to get 75% of your highest salary for the next 20 years or 30 years or whatever.
Okay.
Right. So if they're going to get a guaranteed payment, that puts the onerous of the risk on the pension fund.
Right.
Right. Which is then what? If they start falling behind, they start borrowing from other funds, you know, like Social Security starts borrowing from other funds or whatever. But ultimately, this is the end result of all pensions that are guaranteed payments out, because at some point you hit a point of critical mass. There's more people in retirement than there is actually people working and paying into the system, which is why, over the last decades, there's been this movement away from defined, benefit plans into defined contribution plans, like a 401k. You're going to give $400 a month into your 401k. It is what it is. It's going to be market driven versus we're going to pay you a defined benefit when you retire that's going to be static, and it's up to us to grow it and figure it out. Well, when you have more people in retirement than people paying into the system, that will ultimately fail, right? So, but there's a lot of old school companies like state pensions, federal pensions, a lot of old big blue chip companies that still have pensions, right, rather than 401ks. And this ultimately is a problem.
Got it.
Wow. Well, Dr. Kirk, thank you for your time. Thank you for all that you do. Always being available for our listeners. Your team is amazing and walking them through this process, all of their options. Flyover family, you can go to flyovergold.com and schedule an appointment, schedule a consultation to find out what your options are. Like you said, these pensions, these kind of plans are all very specific to the individual. If you have any kind of questions on IRAs, money, what your options are available. You hear about this all the time. Patrick Bet-David, Ben Shapiro, all these people are talking about this move of what they're personally doing, going from fiat currency and what's happening in that world to a tangible physical asset. Find out what your options are and make sure that you're with someone that you can trust, not just on the initial phone call, but if you want to then get out of it, how does that work? What commissions are charged when you sell? All of these kind of things you want to be aware of going in. Dr. Kirk, known him for over 25 years, great friend, and that's who we've been working with. He also has one of the best minds when it comes to this space as well, with 2 PhDs. You also get a free copy of this book he's made available, Thriving in the Economic Tsunami. You can download it, be reading it today. Just go to flyovergold.com, enter your information, and it's downloadable and available in a PDF for you immediately. And information in there that everybody needs that's timeless wisdom that I think even Dave Ramsey would like and appreciate.
Oh, yeah. Dave would be,
oh, man.
He'd be all fired up.
His voice would quiver a little bit with the information in this book. Dr. Kirk, thank you for your time. We appreciate it. Everyone is talking about this.
The one thing that's very important part of my portfolio all these years is gold.
As gold hit all-time highs already this year.
And get a free info kit on gold today.
It's called silver.
Gold coin.
And though we are thrilled that everyone is talking about investing in precious metals, a lot of these 1-800 numbers will make you feel like just another transaction. That's why it's crucial to work with a person, not a faceless institution, when it comes to your finances. You deserve to be treated like family, not just another number. Dr. Kirk Elliott, who we've known for over 25 years, he doesn't just sell gold and silver. He offers trust, care, and a personal touch that an impersonal institution could never match. So when it comes to securing your financial future, don't just call a company, call a person. Call Dr. Kirk Elliott at 720-605-3900 or visit flyovergold.com to learn more. Hey, Flyover family, come join us. We're going to be there with Clay Clark and an amazing group of individuals that have made such a difference in so many people's lives.
Do you want to increase your production in a job? Do you want to make more sales? Do you want to own your own business? Do you want to have breakthroughs financially? The key to that is knowledge.
Clay Clark is anointed to help people in business. We've watched him over the last couple of years, and we've been blown away. He's part owner of over 160 businesses, $2.4 billion in sales.
So before politics and the Great Reset came into Clay's life, he had the #1 rated Apple podcast. And he interviewed people like Anthony Robbins, Seth Godin, the top authors, the top business minds in the world. At this specific event, there was an interesting cast of characters that come from gangs to American Idol. They're there to share what they've done and their breakthroughs and what their story is. And then Clay lays his map of business success, calls the path for every person to follow.
So you may be sitting there thinking, okay, I get it. What do I have to do? Go to thrivetimeshow.com. When you get there, the tickets are $250 or whatever you can afford. Yes, you got that right. $250 or whatever you can afford. You can name your price. So there are no excuses. You have to join us there. There are only a few VIP tickets left, like David said, special dinner and special time with the speakers. That is $500 while they last. So $500, only a few left if you want a VIP ticket. We want to meet these speakers as well, so we got VIP tickets.
I want to meet Tim Tebow.
Have you ever found yourself without thawed meat for dinner?
FlyoverMeat.com is made from the entire cow, not just the leftover pieces for hamburger. It's the steak, the filet, it's every single part of the cow, freeze-dried and can be rehydrated in 5 to 10 minutes, so it's ready anytime you are.
You can use it in chili. That's my very favorite. You can use it in tacos. You can have your Taco Tuesday. You can put it in stew and casseroles. You can even make regular hamburgers out of it.
It's lightweight, easy to transport. You can take it camping, on trips, travel, anytime, anywhere you want to go. It's ready to go.
So go to flyovermeat.com. Make sure you use your promo code FLYOVER for your discount. If you are at a point in your life where you're like, man, it feels like the warfare is really strong, just know that the Lion of Judah is growling, that he is roaring, that he is letting the enemy know, you are not going to touch my children. And when God looks up, there's nothing above him. I think this is really important for us to grasp and understand that he is above all things. That with Satan, that it's not a fight between the light and the dark. If you were to go into a dark room and you turn on the light, the darkness has to flee because the light enters the room. And there is no fight between Satan and God because Satan is a created being. Jesus is. He's above all things. So when Satan was kicked out of heaven, God never even left his throne. Another angel kicked Satan out of heaven. There is no fight between Satan and God. God is above all things. And that means that since we are sons and daughters of the Most High God, he is fighting for us.
In America, the citizen is the king. So on college campuses, some of the students say, oh, we don't celebrate Memorial Day. It's imperialism and colonialism. It's like, where are America's colonies? We were founded as colonies, but then we broke free and we created a government where we, the people, are the king. The word citizen is Greek. It means co-ruler, co-sovereign, co-king. And so you get to be in charge of your life, and all of us together are in charge of the country. And it worked. And we became the most prosperous country that the planet had ever seen because people could pursue their dreams. But now we see after every crisis, people are surrendering their freedoms to the government, and we're moving back in the wrong direction.
One of the things about the Gospels is Jesus never says, make the world a better place, because he says, it's not going to be a better place until I come back. And at the same time, we're told to rejoice. Well, how are we supposed to rejoice? And that's why I often turn to the arts, because the thing about, movies like Psycho, plays like Macbeth, is that they're beautiful. Dark, terrible things happen, and yet the play itself is beautiful. And to me, that hints at what God is doing. Because when people say, how can there be a good God who's all-knowing and all-powerful and so much evil? You have to have faith that something is going on beyond our ken, which for me, because I have a modest appraisal of my own understanding, it's not that hard for me to think that maybe God is doing something bigger than I can imagine. But what is it? And I think that our rational explanations, our gospel explanations, our Bible quotes don't really land when people are truly suffering, when people are looking at the terrible things that happen in the world. So I think you have to have a faith in something even bigger than that. And what I think it is something very, very beautiful happening that's beyond our comprehension.
I had a mentor early on in my business career when I was in my early 20s who was talking about whatever you measure, you can control. And what you can control, you can adjust. And he was talking about the first step of making a change in your life is just start to measure what you're already doing. So if you're wanting to lose weight, first step, how many calories am I burning? What's my weight? Start measuring things, because then once you measure, you can adjust. I remember talking to you about something. I'm like, we're going to launch this new product. We started Prosperous Marriage, and we were talking about how we're going to be able to help people. And I was like, well, I want to help marriages. I want to have a massive impact on marriages this year. So we created this new product, and you're like, great. First step is just measure how many leads are coming in, how many sales are going, how many dollars did that create, what's the profit margin on that, how much does it cost you to actually get that product to an end consumer. So we started going through this, and you're like, it really doesn't matter what the numbers are, because then you can adjust them. But I think there's so many people that move through life without measuring anything, so they're just always guessing. But once you measure it, you can then start to make adjustments because you're already measuring. But if you choose not to measure, you can't ever adjust, and then you can't ever control anything, and you live your life out of control.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Flyover Conservatives podcast with David and Stacy Whited. Please subscribe, hit the notification bell, and leave us a comment below. Lastly, if you enjoyed today's podcast, share with those who came to mind. Be blessed and make it a great day.